In this video, I'm going to have a look at performing a clean install of Windows 11 version 24H2 on a Dell XPS 8960. The structure of this video will roughly mimic that of the written guide, which is available on GitHub, and I'll leave a link to this in the video description below. So before you go ahead and install Windows 11, you're going to want to make sure that your device satisfies Microsoft's minimum system requirements. So Microsoft essentially recommend that your device has a supported processor, and they list the Intel and AMD processors on their website. So for Intel, it's essentially an 8th generation processor or newer, and for AMD, it's essentially a 2nd generation Ryzen processor or newer. So let's have a more detailed look at one of the lowest end processors that Microsoft support. So this is going to be, for example, a Celeron processor in the budget range. And if I go to the Intel website and compare this to a processor that's essentially 2 generations earlier, in this case i7 6700T, we can actually see that the 6th generation processor has superior capabilities. So the likelihood of Windows 11 running on this processor, even though it's not officially supported, is pretty high. So besides the processor, you're going to need a compatible motherboard, and this can essentially be gauged by the SM BIOS version. So you need a SM BIOS with a major version of 3 or later, 3.0. So these systems essentially have a modern version of a UEFI BIOS with secure boot in deployed mode and a TPM of 2.0. One other thing to note is that the latest BIOS update installed on your system has to be newer than 2021, because there was a major security exploit found in September 2020, so these systems that aren't patched essentially no longer have secure boot. So all systems that have a SM BIOS version of 3.0 or later should have a BIOS update post 2021. So if I go to my system and right click the start button and select system, I can get system details, and if I want more details I can press Windows and R and type in MSInfo32. So here I see I've got an up-to-date SM BIOS version, it's 3.4. I see I've got a 13th generation processor which is supported, and the next thing I want to do is just make sure that I've got the latest BIOS update. So what I'm going to do is go to Dell drivers and downloads, and in this case I'm just going to search for the XPS 8960. And I'm going to select check for updates, and I'm just going to cancel this prompt for SupportAssist, and now I'm going to select BIOS, and I'm going to download the latest BIOS version. So because I'm on this system, I can essentially just start the setup from the application. However, what I'm going to do in this case is prepare a USB flash drive with the BIOS update and update it from the BIOS boot menu. So to do that, I need Rufus. And if I go ahead and launch Rufus, accept the user account control prompt, select yes to search for updates. What I'm going to do is select the USB flash drive, make sure the boot selection is non-bootable, and then the partition scheme should be GPT. We can just change the volume label to BIOS update, and the file system has to be FAT32 because the BIOS boot menu requires a FAT32 partition in order to see a boot device. So let's select start and then select OK and then OK again. So the USB is now partitioned, And what we can do is just copy this BIOS update to the USB flash drive. So now I'm just going to power off the Dell system, and I'm going to power it up and press F12 to get to the BIOS boot menu. So in the BIOS boot menu at the bottom there is this BIOS flash update. So press the down arrow keys till you get to this and then press enter. So the FAT32 formatted USB should display as file system 0, and the BIOS update should be listed. Highlight it and then select flash upgrade, and then select yes, and then select yes. So the system will now reboot and apply the BIOS update. And after the BIOS update, I'll be taken back into Windows. So now I'm going to go to Microsoft's software download page, and I'm going to download Windows 11. So in the software download page, there are 3 options for Windows 11. There's the Windows 11 Installation Assistant, which is used for an in-place upgrade. There's the Media Creation Tool, and there's the Direct ISO Down link. I'm going to select the Direct ISO Download link, and I'll be prompted to select my language. In this case, I'm going to select English International, which is English UK, and then I'm going to download the 64-bit version. Windows 11 is 64-bit only, so there is only one option. So once the ISO has been downloaded, what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Rufus, accept the user account control prompt, select the installation ISO, and then I'm going to check the installation ISO checksums. So I'm interested in this SHA 256 because that's what Microsoft lists on their software download page. Select verify your download and then just press Ctrl and F. Paste in the ISO checksum and notice that it matches. So the installation ISO has been downloaded correctly and its file integrity is fine. So we need to use the GPT partition scheme, and we need to use the NTFS file system because there is installed at whim on the installation ISO that exceeds 4.0 gigs, which is the upper limit for a FAT32 file system. So I'm just going to leave the default options on here, and then I'm going to select OK at the warning that I'm going to possibly lose data on my USB flash drive. So Rufus will partition the USB flash drive, and then it will copy the installation files to the USB flash drive, and it will say ready when it's created the installation media. So if I examine the installation media now, notice in Windows Explorer I see NTFS partition. If I go into disk management, notice I see that there is a small FAT32 partition, so this is required for the USB to display as a boot device in some systems, such as this XPS 8960. So the FAT32 partition isn't given a drive label, so it doesn't display within Windows Explorer. However, it will be used by the BIOS boot menu to list a USB as a boot device. So unfortunately for Windows 11 installation, I'm going to be missing some system drivers. And I need to download these and extract them in order for Windows 11 to be able to recognize the Intel volume management device and see my system drive. So what I need to do is launch the setup and extract the driver. And if I go to this drivers folder, I just want to rename it drivers F6. So I know this is the F6 pre-installation storage controller driver. And another driver that Windows 11 is missing on this system is my wireless network driver. And without this, I can't connect to the internet, which greatly messes up the ability to install Windows 11 on the system, given the default settings lock you into an online account and don't let you proceed until you connect to the internet. So let's extract this driver. And once again, if we get to drivers, we can rename this drivers network and we can copy this to the USB flash drive. So now I have everything I need to go ahead and install Windows 11. And notice that the drivers are in the extracted format. And we need them in this extracted format in order to load them within the Windows 11 setup. So now if I power up my Dell and press F2, I'm going to get to the BIOS setup menu. So here I'm going to be given system details. And next I want to go to the Advanced tab and change some of the configuration settings. Most of the values should be left at their default. One important setting is the storage controller operation mode. So at the moment it's on RAID on, which means that Intel VMD is used. If it's ACPI/NVMe, then it means essentially every storage controller in the device is independent and won't need a separate driver. So this setting is required for Linux. However, the optimal setting for Windows is the Intel VMD because the access time of the drive is essentially sped up using the processor. Under Advanced, I've got data wipe on next boot, and I can enable this, and then I can select data wipe oddly without the need to reboot, and then I can select my NVMe internal solid state drive and perform a data wipe on it. So let me just press enter and then press escape and then press escape again. And then I want to just disable this data wipe on next boot setting. And then if I press escape, I'll be taken back to the advanced menu. So the next tab I want to have a look at is the security tab. So by default, the firmware TPM should be enabled. And if we go down to secure boot, we should see that secure boot is enabled and it's in deployed mode. So if this setting has been changed, you're going to want to enable it. On some Linux distros, secure boot's not supported, so this setting may be changed if you've used one of the distros. But to install Windows 11, it should be enabled. So let me just press escape and now go to the boot tab. So I just want to delete old boot entries. So for this, I'm going to select File, Browser, Delete Boot option and delete this old Windows Boot Manager. Next, I'm going to go to Exit and then I'm going to select Save Changes and Reset. So I can also press F10 to do this. So the BIOS setup is optimized for my Windows 11 install. So I'm going to power up the Dell and press F12 to get to the BIOS boot menu. And now I'm going to select the bootable USB, which is displayed at the top. So this uses the FAT32 partition of the bootable USB and you can see that this loads briefly before the Windows setup displays. So you're going to be prompted for your language settings. So the language you have listed here largely depended on the ISO that you downloaded. You'll then be asked for your keyboard settings. I'm in the UK, so I'm going to use a UK keyboard. Next, select Install Windows 11 and then select I agree. Everything will be deleted, including files, apps and settings, and select Next. So next it's going to get a few things ready and check your PC. So it's going to check your PC for an ACPI table, which contains the OEM product key. And once it finds this, it's going to automatically input it and take you to the license agreement screen. So you can just go ahead and accept the license agreement. And then in the next screen, it's going to look for internal drives that it can install Windows 11 on. So the updated installation media has a bit of a regression here because it displays the bootable USB as a drive that you can install Windows on, and this will create numerous issues. So notice that I don't actually display any other drive here. I don't have disk 1 because Windows doesn't have the driver to recognize the storage controller. So I need to select load driver and then select browse. So that's the FAT32 partition of the USB. And this is essentially the pre-boot environment. So my actual USB flash drive is listed as C here. So what I want to do is select this driver's F6, and then I want to select the VMD folder and then select OK. So two drivers load here. The one that's most appropriate is generally the driver on the top. So select this driver and then select install. So once Windows 11 has this driver loaded, it should be able to recognize the Intel volume management device, and therefore the internal drive, in this case the NVMe solid state drive, is listed. So I can select disk 1 and then I can select next. And in the next screen, I'm just going to be informed that I'm going to install Windows 11 Home. I'm not going to keep anything on the device, and I'm essentially performing a clean install. So select install to continue, and it's going to go ahead and install Windows 11. So I'm going to be asked for my regional settings. So I'm in the UK, so I'm going to select this and then select yes. And then I'm going to be asked for the keyboard layout, and I'm going to select the UK keyboard layout. And I'm going to skip an additional keyboard layout. So in the next screen, you're given the option to connect to the internet. So by default, this option I don't have internet doesn't display. It's been added by Rufus. And the Ethernet is shown, but the wireless card isn't because Windows 11 doesn't have the Wi-Fi driver included. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select install driver, and then I'm going to navigate to this driver's network folder, and then I'm just going to navigate down and select folder, and then it's going to go ahead and install the network driver. So notice that my Wi-Fi adapter now displays and I can connect to my wireless network. So once I've done this, I can select next, and it's going to go ahead and check for updates. I'm going to be prompted to give my device a computer name. So I'm just going to call it XPS 8960, and then my device is going to reboot. It's then going to check for Windows updates, and it's going to download the latest updates, and go ahead and install these. So since we're connected to the internet, it's going to give the option to sign into a Microsoft account. Note that there's no additional options here. There's no sign-in options for a local account. And if I have a look at the accessibility settings, I can't change anything to bypass this. So what I need to do is press Shift and F10 to open up the command prompt. And then if I just close it, if I go to the accessibility settings, now I actually get the full settings and I can turn off the wireless. So I've no back button in this updated setup. So if I just type in Shift and F10, what I can type in the command prompt is OOBE, out of the box experience, and then slash, and then bypass the network required option. So the setup's going to restart. So once again, I'm going to be prompted to select my region and keyboard. So I'm going to select United Kingdom and the United Kingdom, skip the additional layout. Notice that the setting is a bit strange. I can't connect to the internet now. I can only reconnect in an hour. So I have this option, I don't have internet, because I input this command, and also because Rufus adds this option as one of the settings that it changes. So I can create a local account and I can supply it an optional password. Next, I'm going to be taken into the privacy settings. So notice that I actually can't go back here. So this is also a regression in the updated version of the setup. So what I'm going to do is press Shift and F10 and type in the same command as before. So OOBE, and then bypass NRO. So I don't actually have the accessibility settings here, so I can't actually turn on my wireless network, so I need to reboot. Okay, so once again, I'm going to be asked for my regional settings and my keyboard settings. So I'm going to select the UK. Unfortunately, when I get here, I don't get the accessibility setting. So I want to press Shift and F10 here and go into the screen to create a local account and then turn on the Wi-Fi. So once again, I don't have the option to go back. So I'm going to have to press Shift and F10 and open up the command prompt and bypass this network required option. So finally, I should be back into the out-of-the-box experience with my wireless card reconnected. So once again, I'm going to select the United Kingdom for my region. I'm going to select United Kingdom for my keyboard layout, and then I'm going to select skip. It's going to ask me to name my device again. So this is XPS 8960. And then the setup's going to reboot. So next, I'm going to be taken to the sign-in screen, and notice that I can only sign in with my Microsoft account. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with a Microsoft account. I'm going to supply the password. I'm going to create a PIN and confirm it. So now I'll be showing the privacy settings. So I'm going to allow it to use my location, but I don't see the point in having it find my device. I'm going to include the optional diagnostic settings. I'm going to disable the inking, and I'm going to ask for the personalized diagnostic data. I'm going to be given the option to set it up as an existing PC, so it should take settings from the old PC. In this case, I'm just going to set it up as a new PC and select development. So I'm going to be given the option to use my phone from the PC. I'm going to be given the option for OneDrive integration, which I'm going to select. I'm going to skip the next option, which asks to integrate my phone with OneDrive. And now I'm going to be taken to the Windows 11 desktop. So if you used a local account, you're going to need to reconnect to the internet. Right-click the Start button and select Device Manager. And in this case, all the devices have a system driver. If I right-click the Start button and select System, I can see I've got Windows 11 24H2 installed. And if I press Windows and R and type in MSN432, I've got more details about my system. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to Windows Update. And I'm going to download all the system drivers. So once all the updates are downloaded, it's going to say pending restart. So I'm just going to select Restart Now. So now I've got all the updates available for Windows 11 issued by Microsoft. What I want to do is check Dell servers for any drivers updates. So I'm just going to open up Edge and I'm going to go to Dell drivers and downloads. And this time I'm going to let it scan my system. So I'm going to select download and install SupportAssist, and I'm going to select download, launch SupportAssist and accept the user account control prompt. And then after it sets up SupportAssist, it's going to recognize my model as this XPS 8960, and I can select check for updates. So in this case, it's found 2 additional drivers. So this is the wireless card and the graphics driver. So if I just select download and install, it's going to go ahead and download and install these drivers. And the screen may flash when the graphics driver is installed. This is normal. So once these drivers have been installed, I'm going to be told that I need to restart the computer. So I'm just going to right click the Start button, select Shut Down or Sign Out, and then select Restart. So now Windows 11 is installed and the Dell system drivers are installed. So unfortunately, Windows Update doesn't update all the Windows applications. So we need to open up the Microsoft Store and then just select Update All and Get Updates. And this will make sure that all the Windows applications are at their latest version, and the latest version of these Windows applications generally work better. For example, the snipping tool now has the ability to perform a screen recording. So that's essentially everything that I wanted to cover in this tutorial. And just another mention of the written guide. So the written guide is perhaps a bit more detailed. So if I went through something that's a bit too fast, it's going to be outlined in the written guide. So that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. Don't forget to like the video and star the GitHub repository if you found it useful. And otherwise, have a great day.